Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Malahide Regular Meeting of Council on May 2nd, 2024. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:30. First on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Deputy Mayor Widner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have two, the Hewer Drain E2, I believe, and the closed session, the Tate Drain.
And I have the Tate. Okay.
Thank you for that. So Councillor Glinsky as well for the Tate Drain. Okay. Next is approval of previous minutes. So we're looking at the minutes from April 18. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
That the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on April 18th, 2024 be adopted as printed and circulated.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Serna moves, Councillor Wilson seconds. All in favor? That's carried. Next, we'll move into a public meeting. So I will call this meeting to order with a resolution, please.
That the public meeting relating to the zoning bylaw amendment application of the estate of Howard Rowe, authorized agent Colleen Rowe, relating to the property located at part of Lot 2, Concession 8, Southern Division, former geographic township of South Dorchester, Township of Malahide, 51829 York Line, be called to order at 7:31 p.m.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Lewis moves, Councillor Wilson seconds. All in favor? That's carried. So this is a public meeting as required by the Planning Act to allow any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment relating to property located at part of Lot 2, Concession 8, Southern Division, former geographic township of South Dorchester, Township of Malahide, and known municipally as 51829 York Line. Clerk Adams, what method of notice and when was the notice given to for this public meeting?
Yes, the public meeting was advertised in the Amer Express for 2 consecutive weeks on April 10th and April 17th. In addition, affected property owners within 120 meters were sent a notice by mail at minimum 20 days prior to the meeting.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Steele, you're with us. Good evening. Can you provide an overview of the application and let us know if there were any comments received?
Good evening. Through Madam Mayor, the subject lands were subject to a previous consent application E17-24, the purpose being to sever a surplus farm dwelling. As a condition of the approval granted by the Land Division Committee, a zoning bylaw amendment is required to rezone the proposed retained farm parcel from General Agricultural A1 to Special Agriculture A2 to prohibit residential dwelling. Additionally, the proposed separate parcel would be rezoned from General Agricultural A1 to Small Lot Agricultural A4, which is the zone applied to surface farm dwellings that have been severed. No comments have been received by members of the public or agencies at the time of submitting this report. And staff have reviewed the application and have no concerns, and so staff are recommending that the application be approved. And that concludes our presentation. I have 2 questions from members of council.
Thank you for that. Before we proceed with comments and questions, Clerk Adams, have you received any additional written submissions on the proposal?
No additional comments have been received.
Thank you. And is there anyone in person or via Zoom who wishes to speak? Ms. Rowe? Did you wish
Yes,
to add anything?
thank you, Mayor, Council. I have nothing to add. The submission is self-explanatory.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And does any member of council have any comments or questions? Seeing none. If there's no further discussion, then please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of the proposed bylaw amendment should contact the clerk. So we can proceed with the adjournment and consideration of the planner's report with the following resolutions. Clerk Adams.
That the public meeting relating to the zoning bylaw amendment application of the estate of Howard Rowe, authorized agent Colleen Rowe, relating to the property located at part of Lot 2, Concession 8, Southern Division, former geographic township of South Dorchester, Township of Malahide, 51829 York Line, be adjourned at 7:35 p.m.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Leach moves, Councillor Wilson seconds. All in favor? and that's carried.
The report number DS 2417 entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application of the Estate of Howard Rowe relating to the property located at part of Lot 2, Concession 8, Southern Division, former geographic township of South Dorchester, Township of Malahide, 51829 York Line be received, and that the zoning bylaw amendment application number D14 Z0524 of the Estate of Howard Rowe relating to the property located at part of Lot 2, Concession 8, Southern Division, former geographic township of South Dorchester, Township of Malahide, 51829 York Line be approved for the reasons set out in this report.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Glinski moves, Counselor Cerna second, all in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice evening. This concludes the public meeting, so we return to our regular meeting. And with reports of departments, we'll go to our Director of Public Works, Mr. Gobby. The first report is the Port Bruce Provincial Park Maintenance Agreement 2024. Over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to council. Report PW 2418, Port Bruce Provincial Park Maintenance Agreement for 2024. As council will recall, in December, we presented you the report basically outlining the previous agreement that we had with the MECP for maintenance services at their provincial park down in Port Bruce. The big crux of that was there were two major things there. One being the desire for the ministry to renew that contract, and the big point of that was to highlight the fact that at this point we were not receiving any kind of compensation for the services we were providing. From that, we did have enter discussions with MECP staff, basically as a starting point to see where we could get to provide a more financially equitable agreement between the ministry and the township. So through some of those initial conversations, the staff at MECP were very positive on this with us and kind of recognized that it was the agreement as was previously written was a little one-sided. So in order to moving forward, one of our suggestions was that we could establish some upset limits for some of the major expense areas that we have at their provincial park. As a result of some of these conversations, MECP was able to provide an upset limit of up to $15,000 of compensation back to Malahide Township through these four primary major maintenance areas, being grass cutting, washroom cleaning, garbage collection, and beach cleanup. So basically the way that this proposed structure would work is we track all of our costs through the course of the operating season. So we know what we are spending on all activities at the provincial park. And at the end of the year, let's say, for example, with grass cutting, the proposed upset limit is $3,500 a year. If we spent $3,000 a year, we would invoice the MECP for $3,000. They will pay us back. If we spend $4,000, however, we're capped at $3,500. So that's kind of the general gist of the agreement as we're looking at this point. One of the things that was proposed by the MECP at this point was for this to be a singular year agreement, which staff are also supportive of. Neither side really knows exactly how it's going to work. One of the things that we also wanted to do, and we had heard in the fall of last year, was to have, some opportunity for more of the residents or visitors of Port Bruce to voice their opinions on things that they'd like to see different or like to see better down there, or other services that we may provide perhaps. So the plan would be that through the course of 2024, we would utilize some of our social media presence to get a survey out that would allow people to put in feedback that we could then collect through the course of the year, and then kind of digest in the fall when we are going to need to get back in a room with the MECP to look at whether we're going to continue with this or a modified arrangement going forward, and whether we want to continue to do this service at all, whether they want us to do it at all, or whether we want to enter into a long-term agreement with them. The last agreement was a 5-year term. I believe they anecdotally or off the cuff had kind of said they'd probably be looking at something like that again, provided that the powers that be at the ministry are still happy with the agreement, and that council and staff at Malahide are still happy with this arrangement. So what we have in front of you for today is a draft 1-year agreement, basically the same terms and conditions as the previous 6 years that we have operated under, with the major difference being that with this agreement for 2024, we would be eligible to invoice back up to $15,000 to the MECP so that we can continue providing the service at the provincial park. If there are any questions or concerns, please feel free to let me know and we can try and address them.
Thank you for that. Counselor Cerna.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question. What happens if you say you're gonna keep track of costs and our limit is 15,000? What happens if at the end of the year it costs us 18? Do they really think we're gonna go into a 5-year agreement losing $3,000 every year?
Through the chair to Councillor Cerna. That's a good question. We did have some discussion about that. First of all, the $15,000 that we kind of came to a consensus on for 2024 was based on, it was, I think, the last 5 years history of what our actual spending in these areas was. We didn't have everything tracked to know all of the time that was spent there, because some of it just kind of got coded and rolled into general beach operation or beach cleanup down at Port Bruce. So the one thing that staff are committed to this year is to do a much tighter job of tracking those costs. And I mean, at the end of the season, if we find that, we spent 25,000, then we would definitely be looking to have those upset limits adjusted in the upwards direction so that we're actually recovering more of our cost. I think the big thing is we want to be able to prove to the MECP what our actual costs are, because I think they do recognize that we do provide good value to them for the services that they want to have available at that provincial park. So ultimately, yes, we will look to renegotiate any of the financials based on more actuals that get recorded this year.
Any further questions? Deputy Mayor Whitner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through to Jason. Jason, the one thing I've noticed down in the washrooms, they haven't been upgraded in a long time, I don't think. And I guess you've been in it then. I certainly think would that be their cost? It wouldn't be our cost, I would presume.
Through the chair to the deputy mayor. Yes, all major capital expenditures down at the park are the responsibility of the MECP. So ultimately, we will continue to maintain the dated washrooms as long as they're owning them. If that is the way that they want to see things proceed. If they were to go ahead and do any kind of upgrades, that'll be 100% at their dime. And at that point, we would have to look at reevaluation of the maintenance services that get associated with the new facilities. So ultimately, if there was an interest or a communal desire to have improvements of sorts made down there, those kind of requests really should be consolidated and directed back to the ministry so that they get a better understanding as to what the desires might be.
Okay. In your opinion, would you say it needs upgrading? Professional opinion.
Yeah, through the chair to the deputy mayor. I could easily state that I'm sure there are some aspects that could use some updates. And, you know, it's not uncommon. Like I'll be honest, I've seen worse, but I've seen newer and nicer. But I mean, those are also come at significant cost, and you know, tight budgets. It's hard to figure out where they want to spend their money. So we will be and regularly do have conversation with the staff at the MECP about ongoing issues. And one of the common themes has been some of the general physical condition of the structure itself, which I think is kind of triggering them to realize that perhaps some more investment may need to happen there.
Okay, I appreciate that. Last time I was in there, there was no lights or anything working, and it's wet and damp and dark, and it's just not, to me, it's not professional at all. So my opinion, thank you, and look into that if you can.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know if they have their own standards, like minimum standards in terms of lighting and air or, yeah, fixtures. So I guess we can try to nudge and influence that investment. And you also mentioned there would be a period of opportunity for comment throughout the season. So perhaps that can further influence the decision. Further comments, questions? I see that today the recommendation is to receive this draft report, which I would like to take the opportunity then to have it before we approve it, to have it circulate with the community. I think that's the expectation. I think last summer when there were some discussions around what are the standards, what is the agreement, and can we voice our opinion? I think this would be a chance to circulate it in the community, if that's okay. And perhaps part of the confusion, I think, or the debate sometimes, I think, is the definition of clean, like reasonably clean, and hazard, and the removal of hazard. So I understand it happens at the beginning of the year, but what happens by August after a few storms? And some people feel that, well, it should be cleaned up again because it is a hazard, or so to me, it still feels a little bit vague. So I don't know how our staff would make the decision that, yeah, we should clean it again or not. And so perhaps through the negotiation, there's room to try to clarify that a little bit. And the other point that I see is on the map, the width of the beach is clearly defined as 200 meters. But that dotted line between the actual beach and the dunes, sometimes it feels like if the water is at a higher level, then there's hardly any beach left. But the agreement doesn't state any kind of agreement on it should be a third, 2/3, or it should be 100 meters and 200 meters. Which I think is part of what creates the debate too, that it's not enough or it is. So maybe an opportunity to clarify that if possible. Any further questions? If not, I'll proceed with the motion, please.
The report number PW 2418 entitled Port Bruce Provincial Park Maintenance Agreement 2024 be received.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Cerna moves. Counselor Leach seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. The next report, Mr. Godby, is for the request for minor improvement on the Hewer drain.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to council, report PW 2417 is, as you stated, a request for improvement of a request for minor improvement for the Hewer drain. This is one of the first of a mildly different Drainage Act processes that you will likely see more of coming to council. Essentially, the Drainage Act was amended in 2021 with some of this new language for what they would call a minor improvement. Essentially, what it's saying is that if you have a municipal drain crossing through your property and there are certain aspects that you would like to see changed, something like enclosing it or redirecting it in the case that we're looking at tonight, and you are willing to pay all those costs, that the Drainage Act has been opened up to basically say that we will allow that, and we will try and get an expedited process to make it move through. Because I think the general notion is that if you're not making any substantive change to the watershed and you're not putting costs onto other property owners, what is the point of having a big open public process which opens up the whole drain and the bylaws and the engineer's report and all that? So a couple other examples are, somebody requesting a wider crossing through at a farm crossing where normally you would have to get an updated full drain report. Using the request for minor improvement, if that property owner were to say, hey, I want to double the width of this culvert and I'm going to pay for it all, let me do it. And it kind of expedites things that way. One of the things that this drain is specifically looking at, if you were to go to page, I believe 57 in your agenda, you can see the blue dashed line is the existing closed tile drainage system across this property. And the property owner here is looking to do some, I believe, manure storage building next to his farm yard there on the front side. So it's encroaching upon that existing municipal drain. So in order for him to construct this, he would like to relocate the existing municipal drain at his cost. So really, the purpose of this report is to assign an engineer to complete the request for minor improvement under the Drainage Act, so that this individual property owner can pay to relocate the drain within his own property and then go on to construct his needed agricultural building. If there's any questions, I would gladly entertain them.
Questions, comments? Okay, well, thank you for that. We'll proceed with the motion.
The report number PW 2417 entitled Request for Minor Improvement Hewer Drain be received, and that George Verican of Spreed Associates be appointed to prepare an engineer's report for the Hewer Drain pursuant to Section 78 of the Drainage Act, RSO 1990.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Leach moves, Counselor Cerna seconds. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Mr. Godby. We'll move to reports from the Director of Corporate Services, our Treasurer, Mr. Boylan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So a bit of a housekeeping item. The last stage in our budget approval process is the approval of the tax rates. We have a bylaw on the agenda tonight requesting council's approval of those tax rates. So this report is really to just provide information and context to that bylaw. The rates themselves are calculated based on MPAC's assessment roll along with our approved levy through the budget. So the recommended rates are advertised as we had discussed through the budgeting process. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer. Thanks.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Seeing none, may I have the motion, please?
The report number FIN 2416 entitled 2024 Tax Rates be received for information.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Lewis moves, Counselor Glinski seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, Mr. Boylan. We'll move to the Building Planning Bylaw Department. Mr. Steele, you're back with us.
Yes.
The first report is an update on Bill 185 and the PPS changes. Go ahead.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to provide an update to council on some recent proposed changes to the Planning Act as well as the provincial policy statement. On April 10th of this year, Bill 185, the Cutting Red Tape to Build More Homes Act, received its first reading and was posted for comment on the Environmental Registry of Ontario. And is an omnibus bill that would amend several pieces of legislation, including the Planning Act. And this legislation is open for comment until May 12th. And additionally, the same day that Bill 185 received first reading, the draft Provincial Policy Statement 2024 was also released for comment. This is the latest draft in a series of previous versions that the province has released over the past year. And so I intend to just provide a brief highlight over some of the key changes made in both these two pieces of policy, and then I'll have to take any questions after my summary. And with regard to Bill 185, there are some changes made to appeal rights for Planning Act applications. For example, currently the planning allows for a person to appeal the adoption of an official plan or official plan amendment, as well as zoning bylaw or zoning bylaw amendment, subject to certain criteria. And so under proposed changes, this would remove appeal rights for members of the public and would only allow appeals from the Minister, Approval Authority, an applicant, or a public body or agency. Additionally, it would also reinstate appeal rights for applicants that have made submissions for either an official plan amendment or zoning bylaw amendment that propose to expand a settlement area, whereas previously that appeal right had been removed under previous legislation. Additionally, the Planning Act allowed for municipalities to require pre-consultation prior to filing an application. And now the language under the Planning Act would allow that municipalities would encourage voluntary pre-consultation, but could not require it. It is known that the township does not currently require pre-consultation for development applications. However, staff continue to strongly recommend it as it provides opportunity to review comments and concerns prior to applicants making submissions and paying any fees as part of that process. Additionally, the Planning Act allows for appeals to be made 30 days after a application is submitted to the Ontario Land Tribunal to determine whether or not sufficient information has been provided for what is called a complete application submission. So essentially, the municipality has 30 days to confirm that they have the information they need to process the application. If that 30 days passes, then an applicant can make an appeal that the OLT would rule on whether or not an application could be considered complete. Additionally, previous legislation under Bill 23 contained requirements where application fees, either all or in part, would be refunded to an applicant if a decision was not made or approval not granted within a certain specific number of days. And Bill 185 proposes to repeal these refund requirements. Additionally, there are changes made to policies regarding additional residential units. This section requires a correction. Previous understanding was that the minister would be empowered under the Planning Act to make regulations that would exempt or called additional residential units, or in some cases second dwelling units, from any provision or from any zoning bylaw requirements. However, further information since submission of this report is that this would only apply to additional residential units on what are called urban parcels of urban residential land. Under the Planning Act, a parcel of urban residential land is defined as a parcel that it permits residential uses that is also serviced by municipal water as well as municipal sanitary. And so this proposed change wouldn't currently impact the township since there's no settlement areas that have full municipal servicing. Additionally, Bill 185 would propose to modify certain lapsing condition requirements for draft plans of subdivision, as well as requirements for site plan control. This required planning authorities would be required to establish a period of time where these two applications would lapse after approvals are given. And finally, regulations are proposed to provide more flexibility for the issuing of public notices, provide opportunities for municipalities to post on websites or online media where newspaper publications are not available. Currently, the township does circulate to the Elmer Express as well as post township on the township website and by mail to property owners within a certain distance of a property. And so that's anticipated that the township would be affected by this change at all. In addition to Bill 185, several proposes change under the Provincial Policy Statement of 2024. This includes the extension of what's called a long-term planning horizon So currently under the provincial policy statement, it's required that municipalities plan to have a sufficient land supply to accommodate a range of the residential employment land uses over a long-term period of up to 25 years. And so in the proposed policies of the PPS 2024, this will be extended from a minimum of 20 years to a maximum of 30. And this change is intended to provide more flexibility for municipalities to plan for long-term growth and development over the long term. Additionally, changes made to requirements regarding the establishment of new settlement areas, as well as expanding boundaries to a settlement area. Currently, there are requirements for that a boundary expansion could only take place during what's called a comprehensive review, which is a certain type of official plan review that is based on extensive population employment projections and considers the appropriate location of growth that be added to a settlement area. And so PPS 2024 proposes to remove this comprehensive review requirement and instead includes criteria or new criteria that would include demonstrating the need for additional lands to be added, that there's sufficient capacity and infrastructure to accommodate growth, as well as several criteria regarding evaluating any kind of impact on agricultural lands and impacts to agricultural operations, and also introduces a requirement for the completion of an agricultural impact assessment, which is new to the PPS. That would be a study that'd be done or could be required by municipalities to assess any kind of impact as part of expansion to a settlement area. Additionally, the PPS introduces a new term, strategic growth area. These are areas within settlement areas that municipalities could identify for focus of accommodating intensification or infill development or redevelopment. That sort of would be emphasis on where growth would be redirected and may provide for a greater flexibility or wider range of uses that may be permitted. And so as an option that could be considered by municipalities if the current draft comes into effect. Additionally, there are changes to partial servicing requirements. So currently under the PPS 2020, partial servicing is only permitted in settlement areas where either individual private services, so wells or individual septic, have failed, or cases for infill development and minor rounding out of existing development in settlement areas. And so the PPS 2024 would expand this permission to include partial services within rural settlement areas that are serviced by municipal sanitary and individual private wells, which would include, in the case of the township, the settlement of Springfield. The PPS also proposes to modify policies regarding agricultural land uses, beginning with some changes to surplus farm dwelling servants criteria. So previously, the PPS was specified that or only really permits residential lot creation for surplus farm dwelling severances. In this case, PPS 2024 goes further to restrict the number of dwellings that can be severed as surplus to one per farm consolidation. It's known that this implementation may require an amendment to the township official plan. And finally, the PPS 2024 proposes to permit up to 2 or called additional residential units on agricultural properties. Currently, the township, through previous official plan amendment 20 to the township official plan, permits up to 1 additional dwelling unit on agricultural parcels. And this is intended to provide some flexibility for example, farm succession, where a dwelling unit could be established on farm property, and the parents of a farm operation could reside in it and allow for the next generation to take over, or other sort of small increases in residential uses in the agriculture area. And so the PPS 2024 would further permit up to 1 additional or up to a total of 2 additional dwelling units in addition to a primary dwelling. Provided there's certain criteria relating to meeting minimum distance separation, are appropriate serviced, and are limited in scale. However, it's unclear in terms of the policies on PPS of whether or not that these be counted towards the 1 surplus farm dwelling servants that be now permitted under the changes to PPS 2024. And also staff notes some concerns with further increasing the number of residential uses within agriculture areas and potential impacts they may have on agricultural operations and challenges for permitting development on, or further permitting development on private septic systems and wells. And so it's recommended that the town should provide comments to the ministry, noting these concerns and potential negative impacts that this may have on agriculture areas. So that concludes my presentation. I have questions from members of council on any of the items I've covered in my report.
Thank you. So it's been a long time since, I think, last August, I guess, they went back into revision. So everybody's been waiting to see what the changes would be. So interesting evolution, and a very short turnaround on the comments also. So I think they're looking to complete this fairly quickly. Questions, comments at this stage? Councillor Leach.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Steele. How does in the strategic growth areas portion, how does the strategic growth area designation differ from our settlement area?
Through Madam Mayor, so a settlement area is defined as areas within a municipality where there's built-up development already has occurred, or it's lands that are designated for future growth. A strategic growth area would be differentiated in that strategic growth areas would be located within a settlement area, only apply to a portion of it. And those strategic growth areas would have a greater emphasis in the policies on promoting further infill or intensification, higher density uses compared to perhaps other locations within settlements. For example, perhaps the strategic growth area may be applied to a downtown corridor or proximity to public transportation in some more urban areas, where there'd be greater emphasis on promoting higher density uses or further infill or intensification.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Widner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions. You and Eric. Eric, the one per farm severance, can you just clarify that? Like, you buy one farm, you can sever off one house, or does that pertain to the main home farm? Say I bought 2 farms in the year, would I be able to do 2 separate severances of 2 houses? I think so, but I want you to clarify that.
Through Madam Mayor, as I understand from the policies is that if a farmer owned a property and had a primary dwelling on it where they resided, and they purchased another property with a dwelling, where they would be able to sever just that one dwelling, and they'd be required, they would not be able to sever another dwelling until they purchased another farm parcel that had an existing dwelling and be permitted to sever it. So this may differ. Currently, there have been instances where there are farm properties in the township that have 2 existing dwellings that has been existing historically, and they have been permitted to sever both as surplus farm dwellings. And so it's our understanding that now in that case, they'd be only able to sever one of the 2 if there were 2 existing per farm lot that is added to an agricultural operation.
Okay, so it doesn't tie the home farm down. It's just you can't sever off 2 houses on one lot. Okay. And the other question I had, you have 2 additional dwellings are added to a farm. Now, they can never be severed off, and they'd have to be sold with the farm as one group, right?
Madam Mayor, that is correct. That the policies under the proposed PPS, I have a total of 3 dwelling units, so the primary dwelling and then 2 additional residential units, and those would be prohibited from being severed off of the main farm parcel.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Yeah, I think once this is finalized, there will be a few more questions around the ARUs, the additional residential units. And I don't know right now, for example, it says that they're allowing partial servicing, but do they have to connect to the primary dwelling? So if they use a well or a septic, can they have their own, or do they have to connect?
To Madam Mayor, so that isn't specifically defined under the PPS draft language. It just says that it requires them to be appropriately serviced. We'll say that currently under the current policies of the township's official plan, it requires that a primary dwelling and a second dwelling unit share services. So for example, they would be connected to the same septic or well as a means of discouraging further severance of the residential unit from the primary dwelling. So just to answer, there may be opportunity to, if this does come to effect, that the township may have to review sort of what kind of policies or requirements there be at the township level to permit 2 additional residential units.
Yeah, because right now it's not firm, just appropriately serviced. So it does open the door, and even the limited in scale and these like fairly vague. So I think to be continued and of high interest for our area, but I think good news as far as our commitment to preserving farmland. So you are proposing to send comments to share concerns from your analysis. So I'm just looking at council to see if you agree with the comments to be posted. No objections. They appear to be quite appropriate for our needs and the kinds of concerns and clarifications we need to express. So thank you for that. So if there are no further comments or questions, I want to thank you, Mr. Steele, for digesting this big piece for us, and we'll proceed with the motion.
The report number DS 2419 entitled Bill 185, Cutting Red Tape to Build More Homes Act and Provincial Policy Statement 2024 Policy Change Summary be received, and that the township provide comments to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs regarding proposed changes under Bill 185 and the Provincial Policy Statement 2024.
Thank you. Mover and seconder. Councillor Lewis moves. Deputy Mayor Widner seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. You have another report for us, Mr. Steele, and is that correct? Yes, the one on the approvals of wind turbine operations. There was a follow-up on a request from council. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, this was from a previous request from council, that staff prepare a report that summarized the approval process for commercial wind turbine projects. So staff done a review of both some provincial requirements as well as planning policies. First, start by prefacing on January 1st of 2019, the province of Ontario repealed the Green Energy Act, and the Green Energy Act contained policies that allowed renewable energy products to be exempt from planning documents, including the provincial policy statement, official plans, and zoning bylaws. And so as a result of that appeal, those renewable energy projects would be now potentially subject to those provincial and municipal land use planning policies. From a provincial level, wind turbine projects are over a certain scale require renewable energy approvals from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. And this process contains a number of regulations and requirements as it relates to technical studies that have to be provided, consultation, including consultation with the municipality in which a project be located. And through that process, the municipality has the ability to comment on matters including to the location of the project, access, traffic, servicing, as well as there's required consultation for members of the public as well as agencies. From a planning policy level, the PPS and official plans don't contain many specific policies regarding these types of projects. They're pretty broad language. Particularly at the municipality's official plan, which sort of generally states that the supports the development of these projects and contains information criteria of what the municipality should review as part of provides criteria as to what the municipality may want to comment on or ensure that development is taking place in an appropriate manner. Additionally, the zoning bylaw permits what are called electricity generation facilities in all of its current zones, and exempts them from certain zoning requirements, such as lot coverage and setbacks. It's noted that these policies were in place at the time when the Green Energy Act was in effect, so they reflect that current policy environment that they're working with. It is noted that wind turbine projects would be subject to site plan control under the township site plan control bylaw for commercial wind farm operations, as they're not considered to be an agricultural use, which are typically exempt from site plan control requirements. So that was a brief sort of overview of requirements for approvals for wind farm projects, but I happy to take any questions from members of council.
Thank you. So like I said at the beginning, this came from a request from council. So does that, does the report and the presentation address the questions and the inquiries you had received? Deputy Mayor Widner?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through to Eric. Eric, I'm reading on the renewable energy approval, REA. Greater than 3 kilowatt. 3 kilowatts isn't a very big windmill. Is that number accurate, or should that be raised up to, that's, 'cause a lot of these solar panels are at least 10. So 3 is not very big, so that's more of a homeowner thing. So just what's your opinion on that?
Acknowledge that, yeah, that 3 kilowatts threshold is accurate. I know, I believe, or to my knowledge, there are exemptions for personal or smaller scale wind turbines that maybe for more sort of persons who don't generate that, but it's my understanding that that is the requirement threshold for an REA approval.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Eric, is that across Ontario, that 3 kilowatt? Or is that just something we came up with? Or to me, it seems really, really low. And if a guy wanted to just have a little experiment or power his shop or whatever, seems like a lot of red tape to go through to have one.
Through Madam Mayor, yeah, that information is taken from the Ontario Ministry's website. It's the source of that figure. So I don't know if there are, variations in consultation requirements depending on the exact scale of a project, and if the ministry has ability to, modify that based on the regulations. I'm not entirely familiar with all of the requirements specifically, but that is just from information available on from the ministries, is that would be the threshold for requiring an REA approval.
Okay, thank you. I'm just thinking of the Amish community because they have some windmills out there that they certainly use for charging their batteries up, and I hate to see put some silly regulations on them for anything above 3 kilowatt, but thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Council Glinsky.
Madam Mayor, just backing up to the housing situation. So if you have two houses on a property and you have a second property with a house on it, those two houses cannot be separated. The only way you can get rid of them is knock them down.
Mr. Steele?
Through Madam Mayor, if to clarify the question, is it you're asking if there's a property that has two dwellings on it?
That is correct.
So it depends on the case of where that lands are located. I suppose hypothetically, in terms of an agricultural parcel, if there is two dwellings on it, one of the current policies of the PPS and county as well as town traditional plans would not permit the severance of just the one of the two dwellings on its own. The only case of a residential lot that's permitted in an agriculture area would be as a result of farm consolidation.
So to get rid of the second house, Madam Mayor, you'd have to hire a bulldozer to take it down, which is a loss of a dwelling, but not everybody wants to deal with renters. And that's why there are so many houses being torn down in the rural area where consolidation has taken place. So I was kind of surprised at this. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any more comments or discussion on this topic, so I'll entertain the motion, please.
The report number DS 2421 entitled Planning and Regulatory Approvals for Wind Turbine Operations be received.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Wilson moves, Counselor Lewis second. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you again, Mr. Steele. Have a nice evening.
Thank you as well.
So the next report is from our brand new team member, Mr. Stephen Tripp. Welcome officially to Team Malahide and to your first council meeting. You have a report for us regarding a tax increment equivalent grant. Want to walk us through it, please?
So thank you, Madam Mayor, and to council. I would just like to say it's very nice to meet everybody. I have gotten some referrals from small business owners and residents, so thank you for utilizing that resource. And I thank you for those introductions. So looking to the report submitted, Gunther Homes Tax Increment Equivalent Grant, it's a mouthful. We can refer to it as the TIEG report. We move that council approves the tax deferral for this exciting development opportunity. As per the report, in 2015, all municipal partners in Elgin County approved their respective community improvement plans. This specific program is 5 years. It incentivizes investment in the community by deferring our entire portion of incremental tax for 1 year with a decreasing deferral of 10% on a yearly basis until year 6, where the deferral no longer applies. The next step in implementing the program is getting approval from council. I have outlined an example of how the TIEG works in the report. Specifically, the building proposed would be a 38,000 square foot facility that could be used to house up to 6 individual businesses with both commercial and industrial uses. The new unit could have the potential to create 100 new jobs in Malahide. In terms of financial implications, the estimated tax deferral to the township would amount to $122,560.99 over the course of 5 years. Overall, this is a great opportunity to incentivize development in Malahide. It aligns with our strategic plan to unlock responsible growth, and it maximizes the utilization of our assets. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments or questions from council? Seems like a win-win opportunity. And is this something that the business approached Malahide for? Or so they're being proactive in requesting the grant?
So through you, Madam Mayor, it was a consultation opportunity between the township, the county, and the business owner.
Terrific. Okay, well, congratulations on your first report. And I want to specify your official title, your new introduction, and eventually in the new setup, people will get to see you as well, but as our Community Relations and Economic Development Manager. So again, welcome. May I have the motion, please?
The report number DS 2420 entitled Gunther Homes Tax Increment Equivalent Grant report be received, and that Malahide Council approves the tax increment equivalent grant for Peter Letkeman Gunther.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Lewis moves, Counselor Leach seconds, all in favor? And that's carried. Next, we move to reports of committees and outside boards. We have 2 reports or minutes, one from the Port Burwell Area Secondary Water Supply System and one from Kettle Creek Conservation Authority minutes. Any questions or comments on those? The motion, please.
That the following reports of committees and outside boards be noted and filed: the Port Burwell Area Secondary Water Supply System draft minutes of April 24th and the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority minutes of March 27th.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Glinski moves, Counselor Cerna seconds, all in favor? And that's carried. We'll move to correspondence. We have 12 items. Anyone wish to speak to any of these items? Deputy Mayor Widner?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Number 6 for bid fishing and boating at the Dixie State Park Pond. I was down visiting friends there on the weekend and I got a whole story from them anyway. I don't know. Apparently there's some young people down there. They were getting turtles out of there and using them as little baseballs and throwing them around. Taking some fish out and stomping them. And then pulling out some of the stuff that was planted. So the parents were approached. Let's just leave it at that. But I think this might be a good idea to have some kind of signage or some kind of enforcement down there. It's just a shame to see it get destroyed. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Is that something that staff can follow up? So it would be good, yeah, to know more details on what, so thank you for that. That helps. And then to see what might remedy the situation. Any comments? Mr. Govey?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This is an interesting but not uncommon request for stormwater management ponds. We've done a bit of digging around and, you know, our staff have talked to some of our neighbors that have stormwater management ponds and looking at what policies or prohibitions they may have in place. One thing that we do need to always remember is it is a piece of infrastructure, as nice as it may look, and it may house some natural wildlife. I just like to remind everyone that it is a piece of infrastructure which is engineered and designed to help control flooding in and around the area. With that in mind, we always want to make sure that whatever decisions we make, that we're keeping that in the forefront. We can bring forward some various options of what is being done elsewhere. Most places do have standard prohibitions on things like boating in a stormwater pond. Same with other activities around the outside of it. But we will definitely take some time and figure out what exactly staff believe would be most appropriate for this specific location. And then we will bring back information to council for your consideration and further direction.
Yeah, it's rather unfortunate. I agree. It maybe hopefully an isolated thing. And I agree, sometimes signage, we have to think carefully about signage and adding new bylaws. And I know my experience with no trespassing signs just seem to not mean a thing. So yeah, so let's look into that further and we'll see what your recommendations are, but hopefully an isolated incident that the community can look after. Any further comments? Councillor Leach.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to support the Harrietsville Women's Institute with their school bus safety stop arm cameras. As with the speed of traffic and they're not always watching what's happening in front of them, the safety of our children on our roads is imperative.
Thank you for that. And I know in number 4, there's a specific request, so I just want to comment on this same request was shared at the county and the county chose to go ahead with proclaiming June 8th as Lemonade Day. So I think that will be sufficient to sort of as a county-wide proclamation. So I don't think Malahide needs to double on that, and we do not have a policy to that effect. So that should address that request. Anything else? We have the motion, please.
That item number 5 be supported and that staff provide a follow-up report regarding number 6 and that the remaining items be noted and filed.
Perfect. Thank you. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Lewis moves, Councillor Leach seconds, all in favor, and that's carried. We move to other business. Deputy Mayor Widner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I know last meeting there were some questions brought to us about the doctor recruitment. And I did contact the CEO of the county and they're going to have a meeting set up anyway. And we should be having the delegation come to our council and talk about what's going to happen there. So it's still on the works and they're still looking into it. So that's all we can offer at this time. Thank you.
Yes, so an official, yeah, you're right, they are meeting on Monday, so we're, thanks to our clerk, we're able to communicate an official invitation to invite them to come and do a delegation here, so that would be perfect timing. And thank you to Clerk Adams. Councillor Cerna.
More just a comment on other business. Couple things that I'd like to mention. First of all, my brother's home from Alberta, been a long time, 12 years, he's been gone. he wanted to come to the meeting, and I wouldn't let him because he's been up in the Northwest Territories. He kind of looks like the wild man from Borneo. So I said, no, we can't come. First thing is he'd like to, he's watching the meeting tonight, so he'd like to give a wave to Counselor Glinsky. And he'd like to invite you for a game of basketball. There's a court down at the end of Path Ave there, Bradley Park, I think it's called. Bring back memories from 50 years ago. So if you'd give a wave, he'd wave back. The other thing he made mention of is these meetings can be viewed, and he's surprised that only 5 people watch the meetings. That kind of struck him kind of funny, that the business of the township is very important, and he sees it as well. And it has a number there of people watching. He thought that more than 5 people should be watching. The other thing, and the reason he's home, is my mother was lucky enough. She's at that stage in life that she's graduated from going home to a new home at Terrace Lodge. And he's up there every day. Hats off to him. I've been with her. I've been her primary caregiver. I hate to say it, longer than I wanted to be. And but he's home. He goes there every day, 10 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. And he's there 7 days a week. He every day, 7 days a week. And my hat's off to him. And but he's gotten to know the staff. He's gotten to know the routine. And he's quite impressed with Terrace Lodge and the care that they're giving Mom. And he's gotten to know the staff, and he's quite impressed with the care, the compassion, and the way they do things there. And he said the food is good, and the way they treat their patients. And we had a tour. He took me for a tour. He's given me a tour of Terrace Lodge, and I live here, and he's comes once every 12 years. But the new part is just remarkable. It's and the comments you get from other places. She spent a week in what the hell is it called? Metcalf Gardens. And even that there, when they found out Mom was going to Terrace Lodge, had nothing but good things to say about it. So I just wanted to let everybody know that, and my hat's off to the staff there. I mean, great kudos to them for the work they do, and they do deserve a pat on the back. So if I could get this publicly to them, they're doing a great job, and the way they're doing it is fantastic. I know there's a big waiting list. It's 2 years, 100 beds ahead of her. She was lucky to get there. So hats off to them. And apparently there is a fundraising for Terrace Lodge. And from what I see there, I don't know, help me out here. It's terracelodge.ca.
Donate to terracelodge.ca.
Thank you very much. I'll be the first on the list. I got $5. I don't know to do it. So I guess every little bit helps. So 500. Yeah, right. But anyways, I just want to let everybody know that they're doing a great job there. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We'll make sure it is passed along, because it is very difficult work. It's difficult to recruit. And we talked about other healthcare workers. It's so the team we have at Terrace Lodge and the other homes are, just top notch, and we're very, very fortunate. So thank you for taking the time to share those comments. And a plug for the fundraising campaign, almost to our goal, another few months, and every amount will help get us there. Councillor Leach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to relay that I was at the Good Roads Conference in Toronto last week, and had the opportunity to hear speakers discussing and sharing strategies for safe road design, climate implications for our municipal infrastructure, and the use of data to plan for future infrastructure projects with greater certainty. Good Roads undergoes quite a lot of training for our municipal staff. And one of the programs that they have undertaken most recently, and one of our staff is a graduate of that program, is the Road Safety Auditor Program. And it's designed to improve the maintenance and safety of our road systems. So our roads and construction manager, Ryan DeSutter, was in the first cohort graduating out of that. So we are very privileged to have excellent staff.
Thank you for that. Make sure that's passed along as well. Okay, if there are no other business, we'll move to bylaws.
That the following bylaws be considered read at first, second, and third reading and properly signed and sealed. Bylaw 2419, the 2024 tax rates bylaw, and bylaw 2418, the estate of Howard Row rezoning.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Lewis moves, Counselor Wilson second, all in favor? And that's carried. So we're ready to move into close and get an update on the hockey game. So may I have the resolution to go into closed session, please?
The council move into closed session at 8:36 PM pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act as amended to discuss the following: litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, Tate Drain, section 239(2)E, and the personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees relating to the Development Services Department, section 239(2)B.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Cerna moves, Deputy Mayor Widner seconds, all in favor? And that's carried. Take a 5-minute recess. Okay, we're now ready to move out of closed session. May I have the resolution, please?
That staff were given direction by council on the following items that were discussed in the closed session: litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, the Tate Drain, and personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees relating to the Development Services Department.
Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Widner moves, Counselor Cerna seconds, all in favor, and that's carried. Confirmatory bylaw.
The bylaw number 2420 being confirmatory bylaw be given first, second, and third reading and properly signed and sealed.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Lewis moves, Counselor Leach seconds, all in favor, that's carried. And adjournment.
The council adjourned its meeting at 9:31 PM to meet again on May 16th at 7:30 PM.
Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Widner moves, Counselor Cerna seconds, all in favor, that's carried. Have a good evening.